that respectable? Is that respectable? When Jesus endorsed scriptures that contained a talking snake, a talking donkey, a talking bush, is that respectable? A disembodied hand floating in the air and writing on a wall, the sun standing still in the sky, wizards, witches, demons, is that respectable? A seven-headed dragon, sticks turning into snakes, a river turning into blood, food falling from the sky, people walking on water, and all sorts of magical, absurd, and primitive stories. Is that respectable? A book that Jesus endorsed and quoted from. Is that respectable?
I do believe that Christianity, as a religion and as a worldview, is without a question intellectually respectable.
Welcome to Trinity Radio. I am Braxton Hunter, and along with me dang it, we always mute like that. Please, I'm sorry. We're here. I'm Braxton Hunter. That's Jonathan Pritchett.
Yeah, all that.
Hey,
and guess
everyone.
what, folks? Purity culture is making a comeback. It is back, baby. And from the most of all of unexpected places, by the way.
Yes. Purity culture, for those that don't know, was a movement in primarily the 1990s in church youth groups that happened to coincide with people like Dr. Pritchett and myself being in church youth groups.
Yes.
In which we would pledge that we were going to save ourselves sexually until marriage and perhaps sign cards, perhaps engage in strange ceremony where we would go down to the front of the church and there'd be candles and stuff, and it looked something between a marriage and a funeral, and we would sign a card with our parents and all this and give a ring to ourselves.
Yeah, the True Love Waits.
The True Love Waits campaign.
Yeah, the True Love Waits and the pledge, and they gave you the promise ring and all of that.
This fizzled out at some point in the 2000s largely, but purity culture still exists, of course, depending on what you mean by purity culture. But there have been great critics of the purity culture movement, primarily because there have been
the church.
abuses within the church,
Yeah.
and on this, and perhaps an emphasis on some of the wrong things. You can emphasize things. You can emphasize more than one thing. So I don't know why it's wrong to emphasize. Yeah, I did sign a card. Christoph Keating wants to know, did we sign the card and did we get rings?
No.
I signed the card and got the ring. My current wife actually lost my True Love Waits ring, which is fitting. We got married, and so I mean, I guess
You
that's.
don't really need it
but
anymore.
now but it fell out of fashion, and it's been taking a beating. The internet atheist and the progressive Christian world, and even perhaps many conservative Christians have found things to complain about. All that being said, it has made a big comeback, and Jonathan Pritchett has noticed that a very interesting and surprising group has brought it back, and we're only waiting now to find if this new group is going to get some kind of an endorsement from some of these organizations that promoted the True Love Waits campaign and things like that.
Yeah,
in
what
the
was that Joshua
1990s.
Harris guy?
Oh, he's in the right position now to take up for that.
Right, he could be their
Yeah.
new spokesman. He's
already got the whole thing down.
Yeah, he said he did that whole thing, and then he said, no, that whole thing was garbage, but he likes to lead from the back, so now that it's going his way again, he needs to come out with a new book. What was it? What was that one book called? I Kissed Dating Goodbye?
I Kissed Dating Goodbye, yeah.
Just, I Kissed Sex Goodbye.
What's funny is
he
this
needs to
should be a
lead the
lesson.
charge. Yeah.
This should be a lesson to anyone out there who is thinking, if you're like an influencer and you think, well, if I deconstruct, this could be good for my career. Not that I'm saying that's why he did it. I have no idea what went on in his life, and I haven't actually taken the time to figure it out, and I don't really plan to anytime soon.
Okay.
But the point is, I have noticed that many in the community that I think he hoped would embrace him have said, yes, no, thank you. And the reason they said no thank you was because now he's on the other side of it. And I think my understanding is I think he's trying to profit and somewhat like put out courses and things like that. And I mean, whatever. I mean, we do stuff like that. That's fine. But it's like, they're like, no, you don't get to come over here and set up shop and do your shtick too. And I think that's good because it's like you folks out there who are thinking, ooh, I may be a Christian now, but if I became, an atheist influencer, man, I could just, well, not necessarily. They might be like, yeah.
Well, actually, Mike Licona told me a joke that someone said that, if you it was the same joke that I think someone told Richard Dawkins too, like, but the other way, where it's like, if you ever fall on hard times, they told Richard Dawkins that he could go
be a Christian.
Yeah. And get the Templeton Award or whatever.
Yeah.
And Mike Licona said, someone told him, well, if you ever fall on hard times, you could become
an atheist. And make a bunch
make
money as a
as a former apologist.
Yeah, because you just gave yourself a more interesting story in some people's eyes.
Yes.
Right. Ugh.
Well, and one of the things that I mentioned in my Calvinist series, though, and I think I've said this before, is like, here's a little bit of my background, but my status as a former Calvinist gives me zero credibility. And by the way, I'm going to represent it as accurate as possible, unlike other former Calvinists who may not. Leighton Flowers gets charged that he actually represents it accurately, and they get mad at him and say he doesn't because he does. But I'm just saying, either way, it doesn't add any credibility to it. But as far as purity culture is concerned, I never liked the phrase "true love waits" because it's patently false, and it's demonstrably, you can show that it's not always true, that true love waits. I know plenty of happily married couples that did not marry as virgins that have lasted longer.
I see. I was trying to figure out what you meant.
Than many that have. My wife and I being an example, I have seen people who signed the cards, the pledges, got the rings, been married and divorced.
Yes, but if we were putting this together and I came up with the name True Love Waits and you were like, well, hold on a second, because sometimes true love died. Shut up, Pritchett. Right. Come on, right? You know what we're trying to do, Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
the idea is love yourself and love
true
your
love
should
spouse. Wait.
There you go.
And they should have said that.
True love should be waiting.
You should have waited. You should wait.
True love should wait.
But it's not necessarily true that true love does wait, but true love should wait. And I'm all about that. But now, because Roe v. Wade has gotten overturned in the Dobbs case, it seems like all of these women on Twitter, at least, are shouting about they need to embrace abstinence and go on a sex strike until this is taken care of and this matter is resolved. Because if we can't have abortions, and by that I mean if we can't murder babies whenever we feel like it, because I'm not going to use abortion to soften that, we're not going to have sex at all. Of course, Christians have often argued since, I don't know, whenever.
Wait. Did you just give the connection right there?
What?
Explain why you're talking about purity culture right now. The group that's bringing it back?
Yeah, the group that's bringing it back is
Here we go.
The pro-abortion crowd, the pro... Yeah. And their argument is, since we can't murder our babies anymore, at least in some states, we're not going to have sex with men so that we don't risk pregnancy. Which sounds eerily a lot like what Christians have been saying, right? Well, if you don't have sex, then you don't have unwanted pregnancies.
Right.
And so somehow you can become so progressive that you can actually, what you would seem to be a regression, which is back to saving yourself for marriage. That's such a regressive idea that you can go so progressive that you find your way back to that. Right. And so,
it's the weirdest thing. It's like the church has been sitting over here saying, would be really great is if those of you who are devoted to Christ would, and really we just think the culture in general, of course we want them to be Christians, but it'd be really great if everyone would just like, we could avoid a lot of these problems, just save yourself till marriage. Find a person that you're compatible with in every way. Oh, but I don't know if I'm compatible with them sexually. No one talked that way until 5 minutes ago.
Right.
And so and you'll know if you're attracted to this person or not. And so do it that we think that would be the best way to do it. That's what we're saying. And then they're like, no, because blah, 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 blah. And they're like, you know what? Here's what we think. We think we're just going to not have sex anymore. We were thinking that maybe that was the right approach from the beginning.
Yeah,
right?
and I like that they're really grasping on to all of the elements that even the critics of purity culture have. Because far be it. The idea that we're forcing pregnancies from this. So you're going to abstain from sex. So what you're going to do is you're going to dress up in the Handmaid's Tale, which is a dystopian religious thing that Christians have never argued for ever, right? Mm-hmm. So what you're actually doing with the handmaid's hags, what I call them, what they're actually doing is they are embracing every criticism that Christian progressives have about purity culture, which is, I mean, look at the modesty in those Handmaid's Tale dresses. I mean, they're really going full force and covering themselves up completely, you know? I mean, because nobody is saying we need to have sex slaves to repopulate the earth, because that's not a thing, right? That's a story. And as I watched a guy, I told you, Tim Pool, he says millennials only know 2 stories: Harry Potter and Handmaid's Tale. It's the only thing that they have. That's
they do reference those quite a bit.
That's their canon. And he's right. That's their canon, right? And I'm like, okay, so no more sex. They're going on a sex strike. And then they're even saying no more sex for their husbands, which I'm sure that if most people who are pro-choice are probably married to pro-choice people. I'm not sure, though. I mean, I'm not saying, but I don't think that a lot of pro-life men marry pro-choice women, right? I mean, we're pretty 50-50. People, we have 2 economies, 2 countries, red, blue. I mean, all that's true. So people are pretty much finding their people. And you see some crossover, but not a lot. Yeah. So most of the husbands even within marriage getting, which is something Christians never argued, and Catholics are like, we've never, ever said that, right? And Christians
don't even, are you, what you're saying is like, these women that are saying, well, we just won't have sex anymore because of Roe. Well, then you're probably married to a man who agrees with you. So why are you just punishing your own team?
Right. And the Christians have never said, don't.
No one's really going to know whether you're actually withholding or not.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there going, this just kind of is dumb.
I mean, their purity culture has shot way past Christianity now, because not even with your husbands. Because Christians, Catholics, even before them, are like, no contraception, have as many babies as you can have, right? Whereas Protestants are more open to that, right? As far as not, but I mean, they're going right past all of it. No sex with their boyfriends, no sex with random dating apps, no sex with their, and Christians are like, yeah. I mean, you do that, and wear the handmaids look like a ketchup bottle, because you're not even going to cause them to want you anymore. They're not going to lust after you because that you are being so modest with that outfit.
So let's get to some questions or some comments here. And first of all, I want to say Derek brings another side to this. I lost my virginity on my wedding night, and now I'm divorced. Waiting is good, but it's not the full story. Purity culture missed.
Yeah, I've got some criticisms.
I think that Pritchett's statement about this, is good. So Pritchett, give your statement about this.
Well,
that there's a difference between. You're talking about there's a difference between emphasizing purity.
There's only the one criticism that I had of purity culture that I can actually agree with its detractors is I do think that purity culture overemphasized virginity and underemphasized chastity, because whether you're a virgin or not, you can be chaste. Mm-hmm. And that's the real thing that's important to God, is how you are living your life.
Right.
So even if you are not a virgin, if you're wanting to live a Christian life as faithful as possible, you're going to abstain from sex because you're going to be chaste. And being chaste turns out to be more than just a binary, you either are or aren't.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's really the important thing, that chastity is what the biblical standard is for Christian living. Unless you're married. Get married.
And Paul in 1 Corinthians 6:9 through 11, and he says, such were some of you. He talks about several sins. He says, such were some of you. From Paul's perspective, sins, even sexual sins, are things that you used to be the kind of person that does. You're not that kind of person now. You're pure now. You've been purified in Christ, right? So that's the whole idea.
So you don't have to do that anymore.
And so the idea, even if you messed up and somewhere, you went too far with your boyfriend or girlfriend and you had sex. Okay. This is what I think the youth pastors and the parents in the 90s were trying to thread this needle. And they always are. Christian parents who are concerned about kids waiting until they're married, is the idea is that we do want you to understand that the goal is that you should save yourself till marriage.
Yeah.
We're not saying that's not important. We're telling you that is very important. But you also want to say to them, but if that happens, without telling them it's okay if that happens, right? But you also want to encourage that if that happens, well, it's still the case that you can still do the thing that we've been asking you to do. And that's really the ultimate thing, is being pure before God right now.
Right, which is why one of the criticisms of purity culture that I'm not completely sold on, because it sounds more like psychological than it is a real thing, is that the whole double standard. But if men did it, it was no big deal. But women, if they lost their virginity, then they all of a sudden became unclean, less than whatever.
Not my church, not my youth group.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I remember in my church there's maybe 2 girls, and
we had plenty of girls and plenty of guys.
Well,
and it was the guys. The guys were hammered on this just as much as the girls were, and I'll tell you, as a Christian guy who was going on dates and things like that, it wasn't me that was like it's not always the guy that's trying to push the boundaries here. You know what I'm saying? And so I very much got in my mind that, no, Braxton, this is very, very important. Like, this is one of the things you should have as a goal.
Yeah,
for
but you're a
yourself.
preacher's kid, so that might have been.
I am, but I also had friends in the youth group, and they had the same thoughts on this that I
See,
had.
once I got my driver's license, I had talked my mom into letting me go to Geyser Springs First Baptist Church instead of Cedar Heights at the time, because
is that where the girls were?
Because that's where the girls were. But I was like, Mom, it's a bigger youth group and they have more fun, and there's girls there, and there's girls there. But yeah, I mean, I don't remember anyone shaming women if, because back in the 90s or whatever, if a person wasn't a virgin, everyone kind of knew, But I don't remember youth pastors shaming. They're like, once your virginity's gone, I don't remember that. I'm not saying that anyone didn't feel that way, because I can see how you can get there. But even if they handled that poorly with a lot of women, right? The underlying point about chastity is still biblical, right? Mm-hmm. So what something is in its expression that it gets fumbled here and there, right? Okay, but do we still get to talk about chastity, or is it just toxic purity culture now, so we can't say anything about it, right? And some people want to do that.
Here's a question for you from Honestly Atheist, who says, what does Pritchett think the intended message of the Handmaid's Tale costume is?
Forced pregnancies.
Or you're not in charge of your own body.
Right.
Yeah.
I get that, but what I'm saying is, you combine that with the sex strike, and that nobody's forcing you into, sexual servitude. You're just dressing modestly. It was a joke, but I actually said they're saying this about the costume, but I guess you weren't paying attention. That I acknowledge what they're trying to communicate, but what I'm saying is, as a way to make fun of them, is that they're embracing.
Well, here's Mariah. We get a woman's perspective here. It says, in my experience, contrary to intent, purity culture often taught people to see members of the opposite sex as mere objects. It had a deeply negative effect on my relationship to that end. So that's my critique. Yeah, I think it can do that. People can treat it that way, but recognize. I would like to know, like, what do you mean? I'm imagining what you mean, Mariah, is something like, when we're thinking about the opposite sex, we're reducing everything to the sexual act and thinking of marriage as the finish line. When
that's the finish line where we get to have
sex, and so in that sense, she kind of does become an object, when really we should be focusing on much more than just the physical aspects of our relationship. We should be really trying to deepen things. Mariah says every relationship could be the relationship. So one of the negatives I think about it is, and we've kind of already said that to a certain degree. And I think maybe, okay, she's saying that maybe I'm getting that right, I think. But I think what we've been saying here is, I do like the notion that really what we're interested in is persons and what's going on in the heart and those sorts of things. And when we reduce all this to a set of rules about interactions based on the physical mechanics of sexuality, I'll tell you one negative thing, that there could be dangerous effects of that. I'll tell you one negative effect that was bad that happened to most kids in the 90s, I bet. Because I was a pretty darn kid, and I can't say I was completely unaffected by this. And it is the idea that, okay, so you guys are basically saying, now they would never say this like this, You're basically
course not.
saying, don't have sex. What is sex? And when you talk to me about what I'm supposed to not be doing, it seems you're worried about pregnancy and we could talk about disease and things like that, but they're always putting that on you, you know?
Yeah.
And so it ends up that what kids end up thinking is, many kids, and even though this is not how a Christian should think, you end up thinking, so basically I just don't, as long as I don't have actual intercourse, as long as intercourse isn't had, we're good. And if you ask any particular kid from the 90s, is that what your youth pastor thinks? They would say, no, of course that's not what my youth pastor thinks. But it's kind of like
that's the impression.
What came out in the wash after going through purity culture a little bit. Now, there are people for whom that didn't happen. There are people like Derek who did. I mean, well, I don't know. He may have, I don't know about this sort of a thing. But the fact is, there are people who saved themselves and did all the things purity culture said and didn't even go that far. I've got a friend who didn't even kiss his wife or any woman until the moment he kissed her at the altar. And I thought he was a little kooky for that. But you know what? Big deal. He's got a strong marriage to this day with the same woman. Yeah. So it may seem weird to me, but what's wrong with that? You know?
Yeah, but as far as that other point that she made, that every relationship could be the relationship, that's what courtship is all about anyway. And whether you call it dating or courtship and not get into all that with the Joshua Harris that kiss dating goodbye or whatever, dating is a form of courtship. I mean, you know, it's just for a lot of Christians, men and women, and the church, you see marriage as you want to find a suitable spouse. Because otherwise, dating for just recreational sex is you are using other people as objects.
And saying men have used women that way and been celebrated for that for so long that now the right reaction is for women to take that dominant role and be sexually aggressive in the culture and all those kind of things too. The fact that men did a dumb thing does not mean women should now do a dumb thing. It means that's not the way to do things. It's to be this person who's out there on the hunt for a new sexual conquest or something, whether you're a man or a woman, right?
Yeah, and guess who cheers on that kind of sexual aggressiveness? Guess who wins in the end for that? Men. If men really are that way,
right?
If
because you think you're teaching, it's just like when people do these like nude protests or something. Like these vegans will go nude protests. It's like, or nude feminist protests. I guess that's where it makes the most, or doesn't make much sense to me, is you do a nude women's protest or something, and I'm thinking, these men who you think don't appreciate you and only look at you for your body or value you, and what are you doing is saying, here, have what you'd like to have. Yeah. You know, and it's like, I understand they may have more going on in their head, but don't overcomplicate what you think is going on in the man's head who's seeing that, right?
Right.
Because he's probably
what's
not.
What's the cash value of that?
Right.
Same thing as, you know, the missed impression you were talking about with purity culture. Oh, I can do everything but penetration, so I'm going to do that. That's how it kind of played out, right? Same thing here. They're going to say, yeah, because the cash value of that is, okay, so you're just as sexually aggressive as men, then you can't get. Well, if you're going to, now everyone can objectify one another and then whine that you're being objectified at the same time. No, sorry, not going to buy it. You know what avoids all of this? Purity culture.
Right. Let's get to a person
and they finally discovered that.
Let's get to a person who has been being very loud in the chat. IBMeUBU says, isn't it a pain when abused people find abuses to complain about? It really inconveniences a lot of pastors.
Are you going to put that on the screen?
I think we started off the show today by saying that, or if we didn't, we should have said that there have been abuses in purity culture, and that, of course, is not good. And we cry out against abuses just like we do just like anybody else does. Yeah. But but we're talking about, is purity culture like in principle a bad thing?
Right.
And what do we mean by purity culture? Because some people have different things in mind. You and I are talking about principally the strong impression that the church gives to young people that it is biblically something good to save yourself until marriage sexually. Yes. And the church has always thought it was good to save yourself.
Even if you're Derek right now, who's been married, saved himself from marriage, got a divorce. Sorry, Derek. I mean, the Bible just says, and he knows this, but I'm just saying, it's just as good. The principle of chastity is as applicable to a virgin who is 16 years old as it is to Derek,
Right.
who has been married and got a divorce, but he's a
This
Christian.
person also says 1/3 of abortions have been obtained by evangelical Christians and Catholics.
So what?
Okay, what's the point?
Yeah.
We think that those Christians and Catholics are doing evil things when they do that.
Right.
You happy? Did you think we wouldn't say that? There it is.
Yeah.
Braxton thinks promiscuity is the only alternative to purity culture.
Okay, is he the new Kenneth G here?
I'm just running through these to get them all out at once. Braxton thinks promiscuity is the only alternative to purity culture. Braxton thinks sexual immorality is the only alternative to biblical marriage.
Yeah, it's not promiscuity. Nobody. That's a false dichotomy. No one said either remain chaste or have sex with 500 different people. No, nobody said that.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, if you're not doing
chaste?
sex in biblical marriage,
Yeah,
you're in sexual sin, sexual immorality.
yeah. It's not promiscuity.
You don't like it? I'm a Christian.
It's nobody. It's your spouse or nobody. It's not hard.
Marital rape will be overturned soon to reinstate traditional family values.
Okay, these are bumper stickers.
It's just, I want people to see what I could be throwing up each week that we don't. I married my high school girlfriend 57 years ago. We didn't know anything about purity culture, but we did know the Lord. Praise the Lord.
Amen.
Praise the Lord, Gregory Fisher. Amen and amen. You know, we have, Jonathan, at our disposal, the human race has at their disposal, but people who are in favor of this particular movement that I'm about to describe, or approach, I should say, is we have the one and only. We have this. People would love to know about this. We have the one and only 100% effective form of contraception and birth control.
Yes.
You say, oh, that's so cheesy, Braxton. Yeah, abstinence. And you know what? Everyone wants to say all of that. But you start talking about taking away Roe versus Wade, and you start having women say, let's have some abstinence. Now, Pritchett, let's do some other Q&A. Does anybody have any other Q&A? Anything else they want to say that we can comment on? Let's see here. Well, some more stuff on this, perhaps. Christian purity culture seems very intertwined with the anti-abortion oriented goals. Is there a moral basis for abstinence for unmarried people? Is there a moral basis for abstinence for unmarried people who are sterile and just genuinely seeking human connection?
Yes.
Well, hold on. Is there a non-Christian moral perspective on that? Maybe, but that's the second question. We're, as Christians, Jonathan and I on this question would say the reason that we would promote. If I was not a Christian, I may or may not care at all about this question, right? I mean, I would have when I was younger, but even then, if I wasn't a Christian and wasn't raised to have Christian values, I would have just done whatever I thought seemed, well, what everybody else is doing or whatever. This is, in other words, this abstinence issue or this sexual purity goal is a goal that I hold because I'm a Christian predominantly. If I wasn't a Christian, I don't know that I'd care as much.
Other non-Christian cultures in the past.
I agree. I was saying that there's stuff to say about it.
Yeah.
For example, it's not like there's no benefit to abstaining until marriage if you're not a Christian.
Even if you can't have babies.
But is it immoral? Well, it could be, because let's say, for example, Pritchett and I were talking about this before. Like, let's say that we had gotten what we were supposed to have gotten by now. We were supposed to get fat pills and flying cars by the year 2022. They promised us that back in the 1950s. You say, oh, that we do have those. We have fat pills and flying cars. No, we have some weird car-looking thing with about 15 giant drone copter blade things on it, and it raises off the ground a little while and then tips over. And then we got a flying car. But that's not what we were promised. And the fat pills that we've got are ally that just basically make you get the runs all over the place. And so high five, we got fat pills. But if we really did have a functional
not
fat
the fat pill you were hoping for.
if we had the real fat pill, the one that they're going to have 1,000 years from now, that fat pill, you just take it somewhat regularly and you'll be in shape. You won't have to work out. And If you are already overweight, it won't. Well, how did you get that way? First of all, haven't you been taking your daily
Right.
government supplemented fat pills? But then on top of that, it will start making you thinner. But if you had that in question, if you had the fat pills to where it was literally not unhealthy for you to eat all the junk food you wanted to, would it be immoral on those grounds for you to eat the junk food? Here's my response to that. Not that saying that all sex is equivalent to junk food. Please don't be that kind of a viewer, whoever you might be. But here's the thing. It would still be immoral because there is a point at which you're doing damage to your willpower and the very principle of restraint. And for example, if I could eat all the food that I wanted, like we're talking about, I still shouldn't do that because at some point it's like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so obsessed with this that this is? Now you could say, well, yeah, but what if the person just occasionally wants to have sex like a normal non-Christian person does? Okay, well, look, here's the deal. I'm holding this position because I'm a Christian. That's why I'm holding it.
Right.
Yeah.
But, the ability or inability to have kids, Christians and science and everything else, yes, part of sex is procreation, right? But Christians have never argued that sex is only for the purpose of procreation that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, can you find a Christian who says that? Yes. But I mean, does Christianity assert that? No. Like, don't have any sex unless you're trying to have a kid.
Yeah. Here's an interesting thing that's going to allow us to talk about some interesting stuff.
I mean, don't prevent conception for even Catholics is not the same argument as don't have sex with each other unless you're trying to have a kid. Mm-hmm. You can't inverse that. They're just like, well, if you get pregnant, then, don't try to prevent pregnancy in your sex life.
Yeah.
That's different than saying don't have sex unless you're trying to have a kid. That's not how that works.
So here's an interesting question. Does eternal security, the doctrine that once you get saved, you can't lose your salvation as a Christian, does that run the risk of giving Christians a license to go ahead and get a divorce or abortion, insert any unbiblical practice? Because although they hesitate, it doesn't matter in the end. The problem with that is there's a couple of things that would have to be discussed. First of all, are you like a Reformed or a Wesleyan type of Arminian if you don't believe in eternal security? So do you think that one goes from being saved to not being saved by sinning 14 and a half times or committing some particular type of sin? Or do you think that they go from being saved to not being saved because they make a decision that I don't want to be, I reject Christ? Or a third possibility that happens, that they reject Christ in that way, but only because they just stop believing altogether. And so they walk away.
See,
If those there are a number of things there, because it sounds like what you're saying is like, if they get a divorce, they're going to lose their salvation because they got a divorce or because they got an abortion or because they committed some particular unbiblical practice. But I don't think that most of the scholarly people on this that don't affirm eternal security, I don't think would hold.
Yeah, but he's
position.
talking about the practical effect of holding such a doctrine. Does that lead to Christians doing certain things and being okay with doing certain sins because they think they're going to have eternal security?
But I would still think I was going to be saved even.
Right, but my response to that is yes and no, in the same way that you could say, does Calvinism run the risk of being non-evangelistic? For some Calvinists, yes. For other Calvinists, no. I can see that I have no doubt that there is some Christian out there who says, I'm going to do this sinful thing and I'm going to regret it, but I know that I'm not going to lose my salvation over it.
Yeah.
So I think Christians have done that cost-benefit thing in their head before because of this doctrine. Does it happen a lot? I have no idea.
No, but if we want to pin that on once saved, always saved, if you want to pin that there, well, what I'm saying is actually important. You can't brush this off like you did my criticism last week, because here the criticism is actually important because the people that don't hold the eternal security don't think that would make you lose your salvation.
Except for
some of them do, but a lot of them don't.
No, I understood that, but I'm just trying to address the question.
So I'm saying even like that's a question for everybody.
Yeah, and
is God's goodness such that now you think you can go? Well, Paul answers that. God forbid.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of the same thing with, like, I could see that Calvinism could theoretically run that risk, and I probably know that there's probably the particular Baptists are like, yeah, we're not going to do evangelism. That's not our thing, right?
Yeah.
Does it happen? Sure.
Yeah.
Should you blame the system or the doctrine for a bad effect that the doctrine has?
Well, and in this case,
No.
not even a bad effect that the doctrine has, just a concern that the particular Christian should have about all kinds of things, not just eternal security people.
Yeah, but
it's like you're wanting me to give this. I'm still not giving it. This is an issue for a lot of Christians, not just people that affirm eternal security.
Yeah, that's fine, but they didn't ask about that. They asked about eternal security. So
But I'm saying other views besides eternal security result in this same problem.
Yes. Oh, I agree.
So it's not really a
just like
problem,
other
it's just a
views
thing.
besides Calvinism could result in
Not
universalism.
that same problem.
Well, like universalism could not that problem, but like universalism could dissuade, just like Calvinism, run the risk of someone not being evangelistic because they all end up in heaven. So
Yes.
that's not particular. So yeah, I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying, does this run a risk? Yes and no, in the sense that there are probably some people for whom it does, and they make that cost-benefit analysis and they decide to go ahead and commit the sin because they think, well, eternity's not at stake. Just I might get punished for something and something bad might happen.
Yeah, but as C. Denise says, even without once saved, always saved, Catholics could just bet on getting to confession before they die.
That's right.
Hold on.
Yeah.
She asked a question a minute ago.
Well, we have 2 super chats.
I know, but C. Denise comes first. Better than purity culture, teach the value of women to both young men and young women.
Amen.
Amen.
And teach the value of men to young women and young men.
What's up? Thank you for that super chat, Matt Jackson.
Yep. I like his other comment. My money, my choice.
Pretty sure if I told Ms. Green she was my cure for porn, well, it'd be nice knowing you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. We saw that. Where are these super chats you thought you saw?
It's right there on the screen from DeForest Thompson. And by the way, DeForest is I love that name. It reminds me of DeForest Kelly, who's Dr. McCoy on Star Trek. DeForest. That's a
deforestation.
That is a Southern man's name right there. DeForest.
I hope it's a Southern man now that you said that. Go ahead.
Well, everyone should be a Southern man, even if you're not from the South.
That's cultural appropriation.
It's cultural appreciation.
Read the super chat from DeForest.
I find that thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate that. And you have such a wonderful name. I mean, my name's Jonathan, right? There's a lot of those. There's not a lot of DeForest.
That's true.
Right. I find that most people who complain about church hurt, are just upset about their church calling sin. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen at all, but that's what I see more often. And let me say that I'm glad you caveated that, because you know what?
Super chat.
I think that you're right. People hear things in church that they don't like to hear because it affects the kind of life that they want to live, with Christianity as a part of that, but not the central part of that. Christ is more accessory than Lord, right? And so I do think that a lot of church hurt is really just, I don't like that. And so how can I spin this into a bumper sticker so that I don't have to own up to what's going on in my own mind about the things that I don't like? Mm-hmm. That does happen. Church hurts a lot of people too. That happens. I'm glad you acknowledge it. But I do see that as well. And I think a lot of the bumper sticker sayings get spun out of that. Mm-hmm. You know, we were talking about one such thing before the show. My preacher told me that I shouldn't show cleavage, these women say. And what they're doing is they're saying that the youth kids, their whole sexual purity rests on what I dress like. But I think that that's more talking point than reality. Yeah. I know that some people have said, be modest in church.
Right.
But you're mad about that because they told you to be modest when you don't want to be modest. And they said something like, you know what? Boys are going to do what boys do, which is lust after you. Right?
Mm-hmm. The thing is...
So they're describing to you reality, and they're describing you reality, and
Child murder
Yeah.
is okay when God does it. God never engages in child murder. Child murder is a particular kind of the ending of life. Murder means the unjust killing of someone. God never has ever unjustly killed anyone.
Now,
Go ahead.
I don't really care what people wear, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't get into that. What I do care about is intellectual consistency.
I don't mind saying it. If you come into church and you're not wearing a fabric to make a hummingbird a decent outfit, you in sin. Right?
I'm not going to go that far. I mean, I don't.
You're not saying if someone comes in and they're dressed like if someone came in a bikini, let's say, to church, that you're in sin.
Okay, but you don't.
So we're starting at
swim.
the fringes and we're going to move in, right?
Well, you don't go, but you think people wearing a bikini at the pool is a sin?
I'm a little conservative on this stuff.
I mean, even C.S. Lewis said
you ain't gonna see my girls in a
standards for
bikini.
Tahiti are not the same as the modesty standard. I mean,
Okay.
They're
Look, we do live in a culture that's a real culture that exists.
yeah, I know.
And when we're supposed to be focusing on, if I could have my
But
way,
is our
yes.
culture that anymore now?
Huh?
But
Here's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you let me finish, our culture is still such that if you're in church, you're not wearing a bikini, right? That is still our culture.
I would hope.
Yeah. And our culture is still, if you're at the beach, you're probably not wearing a suit and tie, right?
Yes.
Okay. So our culture still recognizes this.
Yes.
Okay. So as long as that happens, we're still at least reflecting our culture.
Right.
And I'm saying, if you're coming into church, I'll just say it. I don't know who this is going to upset. I don't know who's going to get mad at me about it. I know that you're not allowed to say anything like this ever. So maybe this is some big deal. I don't see how it's some big deal. If you're dressing in a way as a man or as a woman such that in your heart, your intention is to
draw attention to
draw
yes.
sexual attention to a particular part of your body, you in sin.
Okay, I agree with that.
There you go.
Yeah. But what I'm saying
But then come to your church in a bikini.
What I'm saying is what I can't stand is the inconsistency of a lot of these women making that complaint that they're wearing the yoga pants and then a shirt that exposes almost their entire breast except for the nipple, and then saying, you're objectifying me.
Yeah.
I know that you're wearing that because you like it, but you can't act as if reality doesn't exist and men aren't going to look and stare and gawk.
On the other hand, it is still true that if everyone came to church in bathing suits, men and women, or if they all come in dressed like Amish people, the young men in that room, I can't speak for the young women, not because of any reason except I've never been one. Okay? And on my view, it's not possible I'll ever be one.
Yeah.
Okay? But in either case, the bathing room church or the Amish church, those boys
are
thinking
for their
pretty
own,
well,
yeah.
and they're responsible for themselves, and they're still thinking probably a lot of the same thoughts.
Yeah, that's the thing
anyway.
that gets lost. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Those two things are not opposites, right? Both of those things can be true. It can
Coleman
be
wears his
true
bikini to church.
that maybe you shouldn't wear a bikini to church, but even if you did, the men are still responsible for their own actions and their own thought life.
Yeah.
Those can both be true. It's not one or the other.
Look at what's on the screen.
What? Tell women how they can act, Jonathan. I tell men how they can act. One of the things that Braxton and I do is tell people all kinds of things. You know what? You don't have to listen. Seriously. I tell people how to act all the time. Their lives would be better if they listened to me.
Jonathan.
Braxton would be way ahead of his schedule right now if he'd listened to me about how to act when it comes to fitness and exercise.
If I listened to you about my schedule, I'd be sitting here doing dissertations and stuff all day.
No, I'm talking about
I know my weight loss.
Right,
Listen,
yeah.
we have a real problem. Uber Scheiser has said if exposing a particular part of your body is a sin, Braxton better start wearing a hat to cover that handsome bald head of his. You know something? You're right. I have come under great conviction in this very moment because I recognize that
objectively
to some women and perhaps some other kinds of people,
objectively, you're just
bald heads are somewhat irresistible, especially a bald head with a beard. Are you serious? So I want to help out. I'm just gonna
you're gonna say for the women.
Well, I don't know.
To cause them not to fall into lust.
Whoever it might be.
Yeah.
Whomever.
Yeah.
My wife might be on here. She doesn't want me exposing my bald head to everyone.
Gotcha.
There, Uber. Clip that. All right. What else do we have to talk about here? This has been fun.
Now,
A channel that loves ADHD people. That's it.
yeah. So somebody's bad cop playing his role. After I'm going to go way further than you on this modesty thing, and I'm the bad cop.
Why did I go way over? What did I say? I said if you come into church looking to,
No, you said, but
well, first I said if you wear a bikini to church. I don't think that's going over a line.
No. But you don't think women should wear? Do you think women should wear bikinis at all? Do you think men should wear Speedos?
I think the
men that wear Speedos are the last men.
You don't want to talk to me about it. I'm real conservative. I've got daughters, and I let them pick out. I've never had to worry about this because they have a grip on things about this. Yeah. I think from my perspective, but you wouldn't see one of our girls in bikini or my wife. You're not gonna see that. I don't think. Why? What? I mean, you know why I feel the way I do, and I'm not going to play this stupid internet game where I'm not allowed to talk about what's the nature of reality and what's obviously real, because we're letting the internet tell us how to talk. And here we are on a Christian apologetics channel, and I've got Jonathan Pritchett Prime sitting over here, afraid to say that if you're a man or a woman, be modest. Sorry, I never said it.
No, I never.
Let's
said
say
that.
it, man.
Yeah, be modest.
I'm sick of the internet controlling every. We're so worried what YouTube's going to say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on modesty. I don't know that I'm as strict about like what constitutes modesty. I think that's got to be, there's different layers to that of what like someone's standard.
Do men wear bikinis at some point in the Olympics or something, or Speedo? I guess Speedos. So no Olympics.
Yeah, I wore Speedos when I was a competitive swimmer.
You didn't have to say that. Now they're all thinking about that. No Olympics for the Braxton boys. There are no the Braxton boys, unless you're talking about the two of us, in which case naming the both of us the Braxton boys, I certainly appreciate that. But we have the Braxton girls, and that's not really, my wife would deserve that if we're gonna call them the Sarah girls. I think what you mean to say is the Hunter boys or the Hunter girls. Braxton's my middle name, actually.
I wore Speedos for competitive swimming, shaved my legs, all that stuff to, get rid of the drag. So,
okay.
Yeah, MJ did call me out for something that I'm confused why he said I wouldn't tell people to be modest, but I just say
no, because we're pussyfooting around this thing because you sat over there and said we can't. You said I went way further for saying, what did I say that you thought was way further?
No, I didn't say that you went way further. I think that you go further on like if you had your standard of modesty.
Oh, I have a higher standard of modesty.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's true. That's probably true. And I'm not, and I might be wrong about that. That's kind of one of those things that's hard to, because it's a moving target, culturally.
Which is all I'm saying. Yeah. Like I wore Speedos. I don't think I was being immodest. I was trying to be.
You were. You were causing all kinds of people. What?
I don't think. Well, I'm sorry. Did you see how dorky of a kid I was? When I was a competitive swimmer, I don't think I was causing.
I've only known you as a dorky adult.
There was no one I was causing.
Listen, D Payne asks an interesting question. I'd like to hear your take on youth groups playing secular music as a way to look like the unchurched world to make them feel welcomed. So, Pritchett can answer this however he wants. I'll just tell you, I honestly think that depending on what music we're talking about, it's not that big of a deal. Now, if you're talking about playing it as a part of worship or something, okay, that's different, because I think our songs should be focused on the Lord. But if you're talking about like before youth group begins, or they're sitting
playing in the background,
I don't think all secular music is evil just because it doesn't say Jesus a certain number of times or something like that. Like Word Music thought they had to show everyone in the 90s. I think no, there's very poetic and very great. You know what C.S. Lewis said about music, always talked about books. What we need is not more Christian books. We need more Christians writing good books. Yeah. And I think that there are songs written by Christians that are not even considered Christian music. That is powerful music, because everyone knows I'm a huge U2 fan. They have some greats from back in the day that are very worshipful, I think, and set the stage for worship music today. I don't think and sometimes music is just, there's more uses for the expression of music than just our worshipful relationship with the Lord. And so experiencing poetry and instruments and beauty and talent together, and talking about what the philosophical ideas maybe in a song Usually there aren't too many, but there could be if you listen to the kind of music I recommend. And then you can talk about those things. So I don't actually have a problem with it. What I have a problem with is, now, again, here's the motivation. You said that if it's like they're trying to look like the unchurched world. Well, see, this gets sticky because, like, for example, some of the new music that comes out that's Christian music for church sounds like the popular music that's among the non-churched, right? Well, yeah, but it's church music. It's made for, well, hold on now, because there are independent Baptists in this very town where I'm at who will tell you that you got to wait till a song or a style of music is 40 years old in the culture before you can use it in the church so that it's clear you're not trying to copy the culture. And to that, I say, what are we even doing anymore? So I don't think there's any reason to think
that's an argument.
Yeah.
I've not.
Yeah, I heard a guy at Starbucks tell me that right there. Yeah.
Wow.
And so, so here's the thing. But that runs on the same idea that the music of the culture bad. We're not supposed to be like the music of the culture. Well, hold on. God gave us the creativity, the talent to make music, and that's going to be expressed by humans. And when humans express a new genre of music or something, why can't that be redeemed for the sake of the kingdom or something? I don't know. These are my thoughts. Pritchett?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the fact. I don't think that it would be appropriate for a church, like at youth group or whatever, to, when it's time to sit down and sing a few songs, that Pride from U2 is one of those songs. It's a great song. But if people are just hanging out and you're having the pizza before the youth group starts and you have music on the background and it's U2's Pride, sing along at the table while you're, between pizza bites. But I don't have a problem with
One
that.
Man Betrayed with a Kiss? Well, this song is all about Jesus. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And Dr. King.
And Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
And how he represented Jesus in this particular manner in his life.
And so I if it's vulgar, no.
Right. Now that's true.
Right.
But that's true with anything.
Right. But no, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong. And in fact, there is a bad thing about just playing exclusively Christian music, okay? Because if you don't teach people good music versus bad music, vulgar and beautiful and ugly music versus beautiful, but not necessarily Christian or whatever. If you don't have these conversations in the youth group, and all you do is, here's a Christian artist, and here's a Christian artist, and here's a Christian artist. All you have to do is wait 10 years, and here's a failed Christian artist. Here's an ex-evangelical. Here's this. Oh, and you start reading all the stories about all these Christian artists that you thought were Christian artists in high school are just worse than most atheists on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so, when you divide it up like that, you get this sense in Christian culture of all these Christian artists who turn out to be frauds or apostates or both. And that does something to where now you're inclining people away from Christian music.
I just think...
so there's a danger in that.
But I do appreciate the concern that I think it was Darren, whoever it was. I appreciate the concern about making sure that what we do with our young people stuff is that we're doing it right. I just think that the question shouldn't necessarily be, should we ever allow secular music to be around the youth? Because they're listening to it when we're there. They got phones. You can't stop it. The question should be, what sort of secular music are we permitting to be listened to?
Yes.
Before and after youth group.
And the content matters. And is it vulgar, or is it not even just vulgar, but is its underlying messaging anti-Christian, right?
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
But if it's not vulgar and not anti-Christian.
But I have this on the screen because Derek says, Brax, I was told by a sister in Christ, my after picture showing my weight loss, where I was wearing a tank top, was a means for causing stumbling. So should I delete?
No.
I don't think so. I think that while there will always be people who may stumble when they see someone like you, Derek, the question is looking at yourself. Was that your intent? No, you're wearing a tank top. A tank top in a profile picture on Facebook should be fine. It should be acceptable for a grown man to wear a tank top. Now, if you were shirtless, seriously, I'm willing to have a different conversation. I have been concerned at times about Jonathan's shirtless pictures that are now all over the internet, which he'll be glad about when he's much, much older and this hasn't
Look
kept
back at the
up.
good old days.
Yeah, but I would be more concerned with a situation like that, because I'll tell you something. I've even had the girls in my life point that out when a man is running. They're like, I just wish these guys would just wear a shirt. Can you not just wear a shirt? And I think that it not that they're being tempted or something, but just because it's like, it's the same sort of thing I think when I see that sort of thing. It's like, hey, there is a recognition there that that's a bit too intimate to be shoving down my throat in public. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was curious if she was being serious or if somebody's just saying that because they want to throw that back at men and find a reason how to do that. That's what I would want to know. Because you know who cares that I have 6-pack abs? Not women. Just other dudes.
Maybe
saying,
one woman.
Yeah. No, my wife is not even impressed. Okay, I mean, she's like, whatever. But I mean, you know, other dudes want to know, how can I get fit? And it has nothing to do with sex appeal. It has to do with looking better and feeling better and self-confidence and all of that stuff. And maybe some sex appeal, but that's not like the only reason.
Well, the Christian metalhead, our correspondent from the Christian metal community, says, I won't listen to any metal band that looks or acts satanic. Slayer, Slipknot, Behemoth, etc. Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it's like, that should kind of be the bare minimum, right? If they look satanic, maybe not. But on the other hand, in the metal community, that's a motif, right?
Right.
That look, that Satan, dragons, bad rock, that thing.
Yeah. It's, so, I mean, yeah, how much of it is like serious and how much of it is just,
It's nice. It is nice pretending I am modest when I am actually just embarrassed of my bod. I feel you, man. I feel you.
Mr. Phil Fox, super chat.
Mr. Phil Fox, thank you for that incredible super chat. Why does Brax have more camera room? Hashtag space for Pritchett. Pritchett was actually fine with this setup. The reason is because if you give both of us the equal amount of screen space, it ends up being very difficult to fit everything in a way that makes sense onto a video screen like this. As you can see, it works well and kind of makes sense here. And then, yeah. So
you could literally, because people don't know this, but I'm going to give away if it's not obvious that I'm saying
it should be obvious. This is a green screen.
Yeah. Yeah. So
not my background.
What you
should
do is you should oblige him and literally put a space graphic behind me where I'm just in space.
Oh, hold up. I can do that. Talk about something.
Yes. But thank you so much for the super. Are you really going to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. I seem to always want to say something to you. Just say, talk about something. Yeah. But, we can go back to this idea that I think modesty standards for men and women are different. That's just the way it is. Get over it, because men and women are different. That's just the way it is. Get over it. But then again, I think about a sister saying to brother Derek that his after picture is could cause someone to stuff, and he's wearing a tank top.
He's a beautiful man.
That's like saying watching. I mean, I guess some women watch sports and they're sitting there, lusting after the players. But I mean, I don't know. Like a tank top is immodest. I don't know. That just seems so weird to me that I kind of doubt it. Right? Can you find someone that's true of? Sure.
Maybe some woman told you that. Well, I think it's kind of weird that a sister in Christ told you that. Maybe
that sounds like
Are you married? Is she married? Was she hitting on you? What's going on here?
Maybe there's something else going on there. Because we think of, I mean, it's easy to believe that as men that if a woman is attractive, it's going to cause us to think certain things. But men have a hard time actually taking women serious when they tell you that you're attractive. Because I'm not causing you to stumble. I'm Derek, right? That's what Derek is probably thinking. He's like, are you he's confused probably more than anything.
Right, like what? Nobody would have ever said anything like
Nobody's
that
ever said that to me before.
Honestly, Atheist says, would you rather federal legislation that criminalizes all abortions only after 15 weeks, or a state patchwork where it may be 100% legal or criminal without restriction by location?
Well, that's exactly what we're going to get, I think. From would I rather... I would rather the patchwork politically, but
it's less of a direct compromise. We're compromising. We're not in control to make a difference, but ideologically, there's a compromise where if you said, okay, after 15 weeks, no more. Well, we'd love that. Of course, we'd love that because we want progress. But if we agree to like that, but not 14 weeks, or, it's like we are compromising a little bit here. It's a direct compromise. Whereas if you just say, well, leave it to the states, that is an indirect compromise. We're looking for states to not compromise. That there are states out there who are still pro-choice doesn't. So I guess there's a philosophical in terms of my ethics.
Right.
I'm directly compromising, or I'm indirectly, or if it happens, it's indirect.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'd rather just go.
I'm fighting for abortion gone. Right.
Yes.
I'm not happy for it to be cut.
And I love this reference. I keep seeing this reference again. It's always, how about 15 weeks in any of these hypotheticals? Guess what? You had a chance on 15 weeks. You had that chance. You could have let Mississippi have their 15 weeks instead of 24 weeks. You could have. But no, you wanted to sue. And knowing the bench is composed of how it's composed, and it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and Roe got turned over, and now you want to talk about 15 weeks? The only one to talk about 15 weeks was Mississippi.
Did we get MJ?
15. If you're mad about Roe v. Wade, you should be mad at the Solicitor General and everyone who went to the Supreme Court over 15 weeks when it would have just been Mississippi. Now it's across the country.
Across? Did you say across?
Yes, I'm from Arkansas.
Do you also say medicine?
So I'm just saying that's one's kind of on you, on the pro-choice crowd, for not letting Mississippi just be Mississippi and say, okay, well, just let them have that, and we'll still have Roe v. Wade. But you let it go to the Supreme Court, you fought it all the way up there, and that's what you get.
Hey, Pritchett. MJ Jackson just gave us $5, man. He says, Pritchett, when are you going to sell me those books?
I would never sell MJ any books. I would give MJ books.
What books is he talking about? Those ones that are behind your green screen right now that are mine?
I don't know. It seems to me that if they would have just left Mississippi well enough alone, the way that
Uber Scheiser says, overturning was inevitable.
Well, I agree, because the Roe v. Wade decision was so laughably bad, and it was invented out of whole cloth. You notice nobody is defending the legal brilliance of Roe. No one's defending the legal brilliance of Casey, and no one is defending the legal brilliance of the dissent to Dobbs. They're just, we don't like it. We want our abortions. But nobody is out there making the positive case for why Roe was brilliant, why Casey was brilliant, why the Dobbs dissent, the 3 justices on the court that went the other way. Now, a lot of people are laughing at the dissent because it's laughingly bad. It was written almost like a high schooler wrote it. But nobody's talking about how...
Did you hear about what happened to that Halsey show? Halsey was up there and does this whole speech about pro-choice and stuff, and basically, I think said something like, I could be wrong, but I think said something like, yeah, and if you don't like that, then you can just get up and get out of here. And a whole bunch of people got up and left. It's like the celebrities are out of touch, man. Yeah. Real people are looking at this. I mean, not like, people that exist to argue online or something, and then like celebrities, those kind of people aren't out of touch. Normal people who don't live to argue in the comment section all the time, and they're just normal people you see out in daily life. Yeah. Yeah, they don't put up with nonsense from celebrities just because you're a celebrity.
Right. I like this background.
Do what?
I like this background. It's like YouTube circa 2009. Right?
Well, space is always popular.
No, but I'm saying it's the kind of thing that you would have saw. Federal ban is the goal. Well, that would be my goal.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Wouldn't you want the intrinsic value of human life to be recognized at the point of conception, since that is at the point of conception a new human life?
I just want people to. Yeah, I want people to stop killing babies.
Yeah,
and acting like we're evil somehow because they want to kill babies. Yeah. All right.
Braxton mocking his commenters.
Who am I mocking?
Commenters, not the people who just want to argue in the comments.
Oh no, not. I mean, there is one.
I've
like
never
that.
seen this.
There is one person like that here today, but I'm just talking about people that come online and they have this whole vendetta. Yeah, normal people are not exactly that way in daily life that interact on this. Although I guess it's kind of uncool to talk about normal people. So I guess I'm not normal. I'm crazy.
Actually, that's actually false.
What?
you are normal, my friend. You are normal. As much as anyone is, you are. But anyway, at Trinity Radio,
Well,
we got some questions. Before we go, got some questions.
What, these? Is there any trace of fear in you that this will lead to an eventual codification of abortion rights now that legal options have been restricted?
I don't think. I think that any challenge, given the decision as it stands now, any challenge against a federal thing, one way or the other, is going to get shot down by the court. Like if all red wave and all the Republicans come in and all the Republicans say, and then in 2024 there's a Republican president, let's pass a federal ban nationwide on abortion, I think it would probably get struck down in the Supreme Court, because the whole reasoning is we don't say anything about this, and so the same thing with the whole number one, believe it or not every Democrat is pro-abortion, which is why the last time they tried to make a federal law before Roe got overturned didn't work, right? You didn't get the votes on the Democrat Party. That's not the Republicans' fault. There are Republican pro-choice people. Mm-hmm. So just because you think, oh, this Congress has this majority and they should get, okay, but Manchin was like, no, I'm not doing that, right? I mean, it's not that easy to get, that kind of thing. Because remember, a lot of these people, they have to run for re-election. So even if they were personally pro-life or pro-choice, they look back at their district and like, I need to win, so I can't have a primary challenge. So, I mean, it's politics. Not that we're the best at understanding politics of all the YouTubers out there, but it seems to me that, it's politics.
I'm not a politics guy, but what's that? What do I hear?
The old song.
It's the sound of an ancient song. A song long forgotten weeks ago that signals the end of an era, or at least an hour.
Casey A. Randy says, is theocracy your goal?
No.
It is in the new heavens.
I want theocracy. The problem is, communism and theocracy communism and theocracy will both work. You've just got to have a perfect leader in both cases, and there's never been one. But we're going to have the perfect leader, the one true God. He was in old Israel, right? But I mean, We've never had anyone else who's going to be perfect like Jesus will be perfect as a king. And so, we do what he says. He's our king. We bend the knee to him. Yeah. And for those of us who are believers in the one true God and are trying to live as biblical Christians, that's what we want to do right now. We want to bend the knee to the king, whatever he wants. I don't make my own rules. I'm free from sin, but I'm a bondservant to my Savior.
That's right. I want no theocracy on this side of the new heavens and new earth at all, and neither do any other Christians, because one of the things that they say about Christians, there's 25,000 denominations. Which theocracy? Which denomination is going to be in charge of that? Catholic or Baptist or Methodist or Presbyterian? See, we don't want that here. Actually, if the people who say those kind of things would listen to their opponents instead of projecting onto their opponents, they would know that nobody wants a theocracy here in the United States. And in fact, the only people pushing for a theocracy, I would say, is the radical leftists who want their religiosity on all these social, cultural wars. They want that to be the religion of this country, and we're the ones saying no.
We'll see you next time, folks, on Trinity Radio.